What's going on? Hope everyone's doing well. I think it's Friday. So I'm recording this on our delay day. So it's Thursday here, but I just went out and shoveled. I still got my jacket on. I probably should have taken it off, but whatever. All right. Today, I think it's going to get good. Today, I think we're going to have a good cliffhanger for Friday. Hope you like it. It gets a little violent. That's for sure. If it gets too violent for you, if it triggers you or whatever, feel free to read something else, put in some AirPods or whatever. But it's like a movie you would go see the theater. So, why read boring books? We got to read something pretty intense. So, hopefully you like it. I think you will. Put my glasses on. These are my intense glasses right here. I don't know. My other ones are in my bag. Who cares? Let's just read. Let's just read. Pull this up here. Boom. I'm sure we had a good discussion. Hopefully, I didn't forget to do that. And Deke Hollis, if you remember, said Pickering, new guy. He seems like somebody kind of been famous in the news for a little while to me. All right, let's do this. Excuse me. 366 turned out to be the pillbox. Remember, she's named all the houses. And for the first time since she'd come to Vermilion, the gate was standing ajar. Ajar, that's a good word to know. I'm sure somebody in here probably knows it. I'll pause just in case. It means like slightly open, slightly open. Instead of saying slightly open, you can say ajar. Or had it been ajar when she ran past it toward the bridge? She couldn't remember. But of course, she had taken up wearing a watch. A clunky thing with big digital readout so she could time herself. She'd probably been looking at that when she went by. She almost passed without slowing. The thunder was closer now. So maybe, a little personification there, maybe a little foreshadowing. But she wasn't exactly wearing $1,000 suede skirt from Jill Anderson, only an ensemble from the Athletic Attic, shorts and a t-shirt with a Nike swoosh on it. Besides, what has she said to Deke? Women don't melt in the rain. So she slowed, swerved, and had a peek. It was simple curiosity. She thought the Mercedes parked in the courtyard was a 450 SL because her father had one like it. Although his was pretty old now, this one looked brand new. It was candy apple red, its body brilliant even under the darkening sky. The trunk was open. A sheaf of long blonde hair hung from it. There was blood in the hair. Had Deke said the girl with Pickering was a blonde? Top of the next column. That was her first question, and she was so shocked, so blanking amazed that there was no surprise in it. It seemed like a perfectly reasonable question. And the answer was Deke hadn't said, only that she was young and a niece with an eye roll. Thunder rumbled, almost directly overhead now. The courtyard was empty except for the car and the blonde in the trunk. There was her. The house looked deserted, too, buttoned up and more like a pillbox than ever. Even the palm swinging around it couldn't soften it. It was too big, too stark, too gray. It was an ugly house. So, we could go into that a little bit. Like, we're going to meet a really mean, ugly guy, nasty guy. So, his house kind of reflects him. Stephen King could have made it anything, but I think it just makes it more ominous, more like foreboding, more like bad things are going to happen because this house was big and ugly. Em thought she had heard a moan. She ran through the gate and across the yard to open the trunk without even thinking about it. She looked in. The girl in the trunk hadn't moaned. Her eyes were open, but she had been stabbed in what looked like a dozen places, and her throat was cut, ear to ear. Em stood looking in, too shocked to move, too shocked to even breathe. Then it occurred to her that this was a fake dead girl, a movie prop. And even as her rational mind was telling her that was BS, the part of her that specialized in rationalization was nodding frantically. So her brain's playing tricks on her, like trying to find a way, like, okay, this is normal. Yeah, this is just a movie prop, not a real dead girl. Even making up a story to backstop the idea. Deke didn't like Pickering and Pickering's choice of female companionship. Well, guess what? Pickering didn't like Deke either. This was nothing but an elaborate practical joke. Pickering would go back across the bridge with the trunk deliberately ajar and that fake blonde hair fluttering in top of the next column. But there were smells rising out of the trunk now. There were smells of crap and blood. Em reached forward and touched the cheek below one of those staring eyes. It was cold, but it was skin. Oh, God. It was human skin. There was a sound behind her, a footstep. She started to run, and something came down on her head. There was no pain, but brilliant white seemed to leap across the world. Then the world went dark. All right. Unfortunately, we're only like 5 minutes into this. It would be a good place for us to stop. But I don't know. I've read this a lot. Maybe 15, 20 times. And this is the first time that it occurred to me that like she has to go through some growing process, right? Like hopefully you would think the way this is set up, she will eventually like move on from Amy's death, never forget it, but move on. So I just thought, she has had experience with finding a dead body. Before it was her daughter, Amy. So maybe there's some kind of connection between the two. It's like, okay, now you're going to see a dead body, not to, but this is going to be totally different because she will have to fight back. But and nothing she could do with her daughter. But maybe that's not. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. But let's continue with the reading. Probably some bad things are happening right here, right? I mean, it seems like she got knocked out. We know who did that, probably Pickering. All right, let's do it. Back to this. He looked like he was trying to play creep mouse with her. All right, one last thing. I never, but this will be helpful when we get to it. But from what they describe, what Stephen King describes in the book, like creep mouse is something you might play with a baby or something like that. I've never played it, but it looks like his hands are going kind of like this towards her. Maybe like with a baby, you might say like, what do you say? Like coochie coochie coo, whatever, when you're trying to tickle them. Maybe that's what creep mouse is. Maybe like some kind of like tickling game or something like that with a baby. So keep that in mind. Creep mouse. It doesn't really matter what it is, but it's just like he's doing that. All right. All right. Back to the reading. Let's see if this changes pages. It does. All right. Turns the page here. When she woke up, she was duct taped to a chair in a big kitchen filled with terrible steel objects: sink, fridge, dishwasher, a stove that looked like it belonged in the kitchen of a restaurant. The back of her head was sending long, slow waves of pain towards the front of her head, each one seeming to say, "Fix this, fix this." Standing at the sink was a tall, slender man in khaki shorts and an old Izod golf shirt. The kitchen's fluorescent fixtures sent down a merciless light, and M could see the deepening crow's foot at the corner of his eyes, the smattering of gray along the side of his short power haircut. She put him at about 50. He was washing his arm in the sink. There appeared to be a puncture wound in it, just below the elbow. All right, unfortunately, what was that? Crow's? I forgot what it was called. Crow's foot, deepening crow's foot. Unfortunately, I've been noticing my own deepening crow's foot. Does anybody know what that is? Crow's foot? All right, maybe I pause it here and I'll show you, but I think the StreamYard thing that I'm using here, I think it kind of puts a filter on my face. I did not sign up for that, but I seem to like my skin looks a little clearer than it usually is. But crow's foot, like when people get older, crow's foot are the wrinkles like right here. And in some pictures, when I see myself smiling, I'm like, oh no, it's deepening, getting more and more wrinkles. But that's gonna happen. Yeah, unfortunately. The next one here. I don't want it on my face. I almost did that. Next one here. Deepening crow's foot. Right here. We're right here. He snapped his head around. There was an animal quickness to him that made her stomach sink. His eyes were of a blue much more vivid than Deke Hollis's. She saw nothing in them she recognized as sanity, and her heart sank further. On the floor, the same ugly gray as the outside of the house, only tile instead of cement. There was a dark, filmy track about 9 inches wide. M thought it was probably blood. It was very easy to imagine the blonde girl's hair making it as Pickering dragged her through the room by her feet to some unknown destination. "You're awake," he said. "Good deal. Awesome. You think I wanted to kill her? I didn't want to kill her. She had a knife in her gosh darn sock. I pinched her on the arm, that's all." He seemed to consider this. And while he did, he blotted the dark, blood filled gash below his elbow with a wad of paper towels. Well, also on the blank, but all girls expect that, or should. All right, I won't read that stuff there. It gets a little bit graphic, but it's there. He made quotation marks with the first and second fingers of his hand each time. To M, he looked like he was trying to play creep mouse with her. He also looked crazy. In fact, there was no doubt about the state of his mind. Thunder crashed overhead, loud as a load of dropped furniture. There's a good simile for you. M jumped as well as she could, bound to a kitchen chair, but the man standing by the stainless steel double basin sink didn't glance up at the sound. It was as though he hadn't heard it. His lower lip was thrust out. Okay, that's a little concerning. Big Thunder, he's definitely not in a right state of mind here. So I took it away from her. Then I lost my head. I admit it. People think I'm Mr. Cool. And I try to live up to that. I do. I try to live up to that. But any man can lose his head. That's what they don't realize. Any man under the right set of circumstances. Rain poured down as if God had pulled the chain up there in his own personal WC. WC. Water closet. It's another, again, this British term, but it's a bathroom. It's a bathroom. Like he flushed the toilet there. All right. Who could reasonably assume you're here? Top of the next column. Lots of people. This answer came without hesitation. He was across the room in a flash. Flash was the word. At one moment he was by the sink, at the next beside her and whacking her face hard enough to make white spots explode in front of her eyes. These shot around the room, drawing blight cometry trails after them. Her head snapped to the side, her hair flew against her cheek, and she felt blood begin to flow in her mouth as her lower lip burst. The inner lining had been cut by her teeth, and deep, almost all the way through, it felt like. Outside, the rain rushed down. I'm going to die while it's raining, M thought. But she didn't believe it. Maybe no one did when the deal actually came down. Who knows? He was leaning over, bellowing in her face. Lots of people, she reiterated. And the words came out losh of people because her lower lip was swelling, and she felt blood spilling down her chin into a small stream. Still, in her mind wasn't swelling in spite of the pain and fear. It knew her one chance at life was making this man believe he'd be caught if he killed her. Of course, he would also be caught if he let her go, but she would deal with that later, one nightmare at a time. Losh of people, she said again, defiantly. He flashed back to the sink, and when he returned, he had a knife in his hand. A little one, very likely the one the dead girl had taken from her sock. He put the tip on M's lower eyelid and pulled it down. That was when her bladder let go, all at once, in a rush. An expression of somehow prissy disgust momentarily tightened Pickering's face, yet he also seemed delighted. Some part of M's mind wondered how any person could hold two such conflicting emotions in his mind at the same time. He took a half step back, but the point of the knife didn't waver. It still dimpled into her skin. Simultaneously, one of our words there, at the same time, doing two things at the same time, pulling down her lower eyelid and pushing her eyeball up gently in its socket. Ooh, good place. Yeah, that's a good place for us to stop. Well, we probably know that she's not going to die, right? But who knows how much torture and pain she's going to have to go through before it ends. You would think that she's eventually going to fight back, right? That maybe is how she overcomes everything she's been through with, Amy getting over that. The running probably helped. She's super strong. All right. So that'll be it on Monday. We'll finish it up. It's going to be a long fight. I had